Okay, it's Wednesday, January 23rd, 2013. We're in a Leeds Town Council meeting, 7 o'clock p.m. And we'll start with the roll call on my left.
Joe Allen,
Nate Blake.
Alan Roberts.
Angela Moore.
Frank B. Whitecoat.
Okay. On our agenda, we have an invocation that will be given by Angela Moore tonight.
O Lord our God, we just give thanks and praise to your holy name for the freedom that we have to meet freely, to judge our own local issues, to exercise the freedom that you've given us, Lord. We just ask for your guidance for any decisions and discussion that happens tonight, and just in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Angie. Nate will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nate. Are there any declarations or abstentions or conflicts, declarations of abstentions or conflicts with tonight's agenda before it, council? Tonight's shows a consent agenda that would contain the meeting minutes from January 9th. Those are not available tonight, so what I'm looking at is just approving tonight's agenda and striking the meeting minutes from January 9th.
I move that we approve the agenda tonight minus the minutes.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Angela Rohr and seconded by Frank Loico to approve tonight's agenda and striking the meeting minutes from January 9th. All those in favor? Aye. On the announcements, we'll start with A, which is the Planning Commission openings that exist. There are 3 Planning Commission positions that are open. Currently, we'll have some more discussion on this later, but currently the town does not have a land use authority in a planning commission. We do not have enough members to even constitute it.
I was thinking that 2 of those were not official until their meeting next, February 16th.
That's true. That's true. They,
So we're good for this next meeting.
Yeah.
Then we've got to have replacements.
I'd like to see the replacements now.
No, Gary.
We also have a mayor midterm opening that will be available on February 13th at sometime later in that PM on that day. There is notices placed here at Town Hall, Post Office, on the state website, and on the Leeds Town website that explains how to put in a letter of intent to serve in that midterm opening. Also, we have a dog licensing clinic that's coming up on February 2nd. We've been a little bit slow on really getting going on some of these licensings this year with having limited staff. We'll try a 2-hour block on February 2nd.
What time is it going to be here?
1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's a Saturday.
Is that the same time as Ben publicly noticed.
Yes.
Thanks. Planning on being here. That was an assignment for my wife. She's not
There you
gonna
go.
be here, so.
We had one individual come in today, fill out for a dog license, and we haven't even received our little tags yet. So we can issue the dog license, but I suspect the tags will be here by February 2nd.
Are the tags for licensing or just for the rabies vaccine?
The tags will be for licensing. Rabies are handled by the veterinarian, and you'll receive your paperwork. If you have the veterinarian at that time, you'll receive your paperwork. Otherwise, you have to show proof of vaccination. So whatever vet that you use. 6D is on business licensing. Like I said, we've been a little slow. In the past, the town has sent reminders for business licensing in the December timeframe. The business license applications are made available here at Town Hall, and they're on Leeds Town website. I've discussed with Bob, our staff clerk recorder, on whether to mail out reminders there. I think it's important that businesses understand that it's their responsibility, you know, as business owners to make sure that they're properly licensed. I'm not saying that we would not send out a reminder, but there is language in that application that helps them to remember it's their responsibility to meet that.
Would there be anything wrong in just sending the bill?
They may or may not be in business. That's where,
I know, but they would have to return if they're not in business, so you assume they're doing
I don't know.
That's how serious we handled it. They send out a bill, and if it's not paid by a certain day, they assess that. I think it's a $10 service charge.
Yeah, in our documents, it states that you have until February 28th. After that, there would be a late fee assigned to a previous business license that had been issued. Obviously, someone that comes in anytime during the mid-year that has never been licensed here for a business should not have to pay any kind of late fee. And it's not prorated either. It's, at this time, our fee schedule is $50 for that business license. Okay, public hearings, we have none tonight. Moving on to action items, number 8A. No, I'm not from Canada. A. Consideration of ordinance 2013-01 on the policies and procedures. In December, we all received a draft copy of the policies and procedures, both in hard copy and electronic format. At that time, I asked that each council member take the opportunity to go through there. Most of the changes that you'll see help explain that these policies and procedures are also affect elected and appointed officials. Usually policies and procedures are dealing with employees, and in the policies and procedures it tells us that elected and appointed officials are not employees of the town. However, our policies and our conduct and the way we're governed should follow these policies and procedures here for any of our paid employees. And so the language that you see there that's been added is highlighted in yellow that shows appointed officials or elected officials. there any comments by council members? It's a very extensive policies and procedures for a small town especially, which is good. It's a good thing to have. But I felt that the best way to look at it is not actually do an amendment, but if we adopt that copy or that language that's there, then that would be a new existing policy and procedure. It's easier from the side of keeping track of your ordinances.
Right.
Any further discussion on that, or are we ready to make a motion on that? Or do you feel it's something that you need more time?
I think we're ready to make a motion.
So would the motion be to adopt this per ordinance or to adopt that revised?
To adopt the amended ordinance.
I think it would be
Well,
revised.
I do have one typo here, because it really is a resolution, and it won't be 2013-01, because we had two previous resolutions. This would be 03, and it would be a resolution, not an ordinance. We could call it either one, it really doesn't matter. But the motion I would think would make better sense if the motion was to adopt Resolution 2013-03, Leeds Policies and Procedures, which ties it directly to that document, a current document.
Because that would just be what the modifications would be.
Yeah.
That would make more sense. Instead of
Resolve
adopting the
it's
whole thing.
amended.
Yeah.
It's not a new ordinance, it's a resolution amendment.
Somebody feel good, agree about making that? Let's call it a resolution, I think that's gonna be better language.
I move that we adopt resolution 2013-03, amending the town of Leeds policies and procedures manual.
Second?
It's been moved by Joe Allen, and seconded by Nate Blake, to approve resolution 2013-03, amending Leeds Town policies and procedures. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 8B, this has been first drafted back when Hiram was sitting in the mayor position. It's a cemetery ordinance. I feel that the town's really treading on thin ice when it comes to their cemeteries, because we have no rules or regulations that govern our cemeteries. And when you look at some of the things that have gone on in the cemeteries, it's very concerning.
My mother-in-law would not argue with that comment.
And
I'm sorry.
I mean, it has to start somewhere with, here's the rules that govern how we deal with the cemeteries. And once you establish that, if something changes, things change, then you go through the process, make those amendments, whatever makes sense, but you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah,
So-
we've gone through this numerous times.
So if at some time in the future,
the vault that was demonstrated here a year ago, if it's deemed acceptable, it could be altered to include that.
Absolutely, this ordinance is like any other ordinance. They can go through the process and be modified or amended. I've mentioned this before in public meetings. I find it interesting, when you're talking about cemeteries, you're talking about properties, you're talking about land. But when it comes to cemetery ordinances, they're not governed the same way that land use ordinances are. They're an administrative function of the municipality to establish those rules and regulations. You can plug in some language there if you feel like you wanted to add that at this time. Angie,
Since I don't remember exactly what the nature of the material was, if it was a resin or
A plastic or fiberglass.
Oh, it was PVC.
It was
Yeah, it was PVC.
like a large PVC pipe is what it was.
So, what do you all think?
No, I think we can bring that time. And I didn't see the demonstration.
What did you have anybody that volunteers?
But my concern was the cost of vaults keeps going up, and it makes the cost of burial simply more expensive every year, having just buried some of these past year. And I think that there's a lot of people that might not be able to afford that, but if we deem that it's important, then, I would think at some point in the future, we might look at cheaper alternatives.
I'm all in favor of a cheap alternative, and PVC, I mean, been underground for 50 years, we've got pipes down that wall, still functional, it should protect the body.
Water board, what's the size of the biggest PVC water pipe? 3 feet diameter?
All that are here in Leeds
Well,
or
no,
that exist.
that
Yes?
would be sewer, which we don't have.
Yeah, 10-inch largest pipe.
So is sewer ever PVC? And that would be a whole lot bigger.
Not often. Most municipalities use concrete for larger
Okay.
drainage.
We'll just leave it as it is for
For the public's benefit, because I explained this to the council, this draft that we have in front of us has been revised by Darrell Nelson, who is filling the shoes of our cemetery section. At this point, Darrell had asked in 2012 to have the opportunity to look at that draft that we had at that time and make some revisions.
should we have it on the agenda next time to appoint, or is that just an administrative appointment?
That's an administrative appointment.
Just because we're talking about cemeteries, I noticed that the land that appears to be adjacent to the city cemetery has had for sale sign on it for a long time.
There's actually a piece of property between the one that's for sale and the current cemetery.
It went up for auction.
But, the one that's for sale that you see, there's a piece of property between those two. We had been approached by the owner of that property to see if the town was interested in purchasing it. It's quite a distance from the cemetery.
Oh, it's not adjacent.
It's not directly adjacent to it. The piece that is directly adjacent to it would be of interest to the town. And it was a fair offering that it would make for an extremely large cemetery, but I believe in the future, I believe that Leeds ought to consider looking at more property acquisition adjacent to the Leeds Cemetery. We have quite a bit of property available adjacent to the historic cemeteries. We need to get a little better handle on the layouts and how we're going to administer those.
Right.
Well, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2013-04, an ordinance adopting cemetery regulations for the town of Leeds, Utah.
Let me make a clarification on the ordinance number. This would be 2013-01 ordinance, because this will be the first ordinance. The last two we've done 2 weeks ago were resolutions.
Okay. Then I move that we adopt ordinance number 2013-01, an ordinance adopting cemetery regulations for the town of Leeds, Utah.
I second.
Point of question.
Yes.
Do we call this revised since it's really a new ordinance?
I would not call it revised. Did you use that word? I didn't think you
No,
used
it's
that
on the
word.
document, it's revised.
Yeah, it's on the document. Strike that. It will be called the cemetery ordinance.
Okay.
It's been moved by Joe Allen and seconded by Angie Rohr to approve, no, to adopt, that was the word you used, to adopt ordinance 2013-01, cemetery ordinance. Cemetery regulations for the town of Leeds. I believe that's how that.
I said it in heading.
Yeah.
Ordinance adopting cemetery regulations.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're moving on down to discussion items. The first discussion item, 9A, is the planning commission quantity of members. I had some discussion with David Church, who is the legal counsel for Utah League of Cities and Towns. Explained to him what our potential position may be as far as the planning commission goes. State law says, as a body of politic, as a municipality, a subdivision of the state, you will have someone that deals with your subdivisions and your land use issues. Now, the town of Leeds ordinance states there will be 5 individuals on the planning commission. By ordinance, you can change that number. That number realistically could be 1. Now, one individual that would be willing to take that upon themselves would, for lack of a better word, would be crazy. But I think we need to have some discussion that realistically, I'm not sure at this time, the indicators do not show that we can get 5 people to staff that board.
I mean, we've been over a year with openings and one after another.
The other thing that is, I think, important for us to discuss, those are 5-year terms. Perhaps we ought to look at modifying what that term length is. 5 years is,
It's a long time to commit to something.
it is quite a while to commit. And that body is extremely important to a municipality. Don't underestimate how important that body is.
So would somebody be more willing to serve if, say, it was a 2-year obligation?
I would think that more people would take an interest in a shorter
I
term.
would sure hope we could find some people in our town. You know, there have been so many who've been voicing opinions at every meeting, meeting after meeting. Why not just join the planning commission?
Yeah, I think the 5 is too long. I think we did something less. 5 more people volunteer because it's a rotation.
I'll come and give it to you.
I would venture a guess that maybe they chose 5 years because for land use issues, it helps to have a knowledge, a history, and if you have somebody who can remember back when something was done. And so I'm thinking a 3-year would be a lot more reasonable than a 5, but still would give a little more continuity. And maybe reducing the number of required members to 3 and have an alternate.
would it make sense to have 2 people on a 5-year appointment and 3 on a 3-year appointment, so we always have someone in the middle?
You're still looking at 5 people total.
Well, no, I'm just throwing that out, having different years you serve.
Well, they do serve, well, they still serve 5 years, but, yeah,
I mean, there's no reason why a person couldn't be reappointed, is there?
no.
You just wanna hold their feet to the fire?
No, I was just throwing an idea.
Just give an option there.
Just giving an option. Sitting over here thinking, maybe I was just throwing an option out.
Eventually, that may rotate around to where I'd have to look at that timeline, to where you may have more than 2 that would terminate at one time. And that's the idea behind staggering. It's doable.
What if you did 3 people, 3 years?
We don't have, I mean, it's not up for decision tonight, but it's something that I think we probably ought to seriously consider making an action item in the future on.
Has anyone ever offered their resignation because, or said that they would not serve because they couldn't commit to 5 years? No? I mean,
No, I've never seen a resignation that was
just
because
like a
of,
mental thing. Just
I'm not even gonna try and second guess what their reasons are. I can only read what's in their letter of resignation. And we've had quite a few of them over the last 4 years especially. That board's been very difficult to staff.
So can we put it on the agenda for next time?
in the meantime, any of you are welcome to put in a letter of intent to serve. Provided you are a resident of Leeds. And a voter, registered voter.
They need to be a registered voter.
And those who live in the county can use my home address if you want to register.
Now, our ordinance, we can change that. I mean, by state law, they don't have to reside in the municipality.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, your ordinance, but our ordinance states that they have to live here in Leeds, they have to be a registered voter. It used to read, you had to live here a minimum of 1 year at a time.
Oh,
Because
does it do that anymore?
it does not. That's been modified because we couldn't fill the positions. That was modified 4 years ago, so it sticks in my head. Okay, we'll move on to the next discussion item, which was trash collection and fees. As Bob and I looked over what the town collects in trash collection and what we are charged by Washington County Solid Waste, we plug numbers into the budget, looking at previous years, but realistically at this point in this budget year, there is $3,600 that of revenues that we've made after paying the expenditures that were billed from Washington County Solid Waste. When you crunch the numbers, you have to ask yourself, between overhead and time of whomever's dealing with those issues, dealing with trash, is that sufficient? I mean, are those numbers really sufficient? And I bring this up just so it's in your mind. I think it needs to be really looked at closer as we start preparing for a budget of this next fiscal year, of what are the real numbers that should be there.
What are some of the other towns, what are they
I have no idea. You know, and it's also been asked, the question's been raised, why does the town act as the middleman for Washington County Solid Waste? Now, the district likes it that way, because they know they're gonna get paid from the town, and they only have to send out one bill. So there's pros and cons. The pros, it makes an avenue to be able to send notices out to the community. There's some that say that a benefit is to know who's in the community. There's other avenues, Joe, you understand this through real estate. There's other ways and means to know who lives within the municipality of Leeds. One issue that we noticed 2 weeks ago, and it was from an individual that was renting a property, a house. The owner of that property came in specifically wanting to get squared away and see what monies were owed for anything to Leeds, because they were wanting to dispose of the property and sell it. For the entire time that individual lived there and rented, the town billed that individual as the renter, which is not normal in what we do. We need to bill the property owner, otherwise you have no recourse if bills aren't paid. He never paid. But the owner of the property didn't know anything about it because he never received the bill. The individual renting it did. And that's something in our bookkeeping that we definitely need to fix. Make sure that doesn't happen.
Now, that $3,600, the town profits.
That's at this point, in this,
13.
For 6 months.
it's
13.
For 6 months?
Yeah, that's our 6 months.
it's
We're-
3,600.
36.
3,600. But you're only doing this quarterly, or do you bill everybody quarterly, or do you,
Yes.
so,
It was everything up through 12/31.
but the whole town gets billed on a quarterly basis?
Yes.
Not A through F,
No.
gets billed 1 month and F through, okay.
It's all one shot.
So the profit, so the overhead on 3,600,
Well, postage, just the postage, not the envelopes and everything else in the time, is about $630 for the year.
and we're talking about $7,200 per year.
Roughly, yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
One thing we didn't talk about the other day when we were talking about this is that our problem with renters, I think we probably should consider a deposit from renters. If we're going to rent to, or to service renters. I know if you live in St. George or Bountiful or any place like that, if you're a renter, you pay a deposit on your utilities. So that's something you might want to consider when we get to budget time.
And the disadvantage with the position that we're in here is you have no leverage.
Yeah.
I guess if you get a deposit from them, well, let's say they do not pay, and I don't know what that deposit amount may be. Let's say they continue not to pay. The town, we don't have a recourse on the renter. We have recourse on the property owner simply to file a lien against the property for monies owed.
And it's not like electricity where you can shut off the power. We're not gonna stop picking up trash.
Well,
Yeah.
they do, don't they?
No, they don't.
They just pick them up if somebody's stuck it out there.
Yeah, and you understand the individual that's driving, they don't know any of that, they're just picking up trash cans.
I thought they had a list.
Well, it's in the public's best interest to pick up the trash.
Yeah.
Your recourse is to place a lien on the properties, and that's the reason that it's in our best interest to bill the property owners and let them deal with, if they have renters or whatever they do with their properties, as far as who occupies
And
them.
that's how all municipalities I've ever dealt with have, on all my rental properties have always been, because I've always taken care of sewer, water, and garbage, because they have recourse, the city has recourse to come back on me, on the renter.
What about the possibility of offering, is
this might be particularly helpful to landowners who are renting, is a slight discount if they pay it a whole year at a time. Because it depends on the bill.
That would be open to all citizens?
Yeah, you can open it also.
You would have to open it to all
Yeah.
citizens.
Yeah, but I meant it would be particularly helpful to landowners who, well, I don't live there and, I can't just, I don't wanna have to keep paying tabs, on the property.
It's much easier to bill the property owner and not get
Yes.
involved in that portion of
Right.
rentals
Right.
or the municipality.
I mean, with the trailer parks, we don't charge each of those individuals. We charge the trailer park,
The trailer parks have
have their own,
large dumpsters that they
so
deal with.
they contract separately.
The town has separate dumpsters too, that the town has over here at the bar. I mean, that's a separate fee, a separate pickup. Walton Plaza would be one that we don't charge them, they have their own dumpster.
And my own.
Now, the dumpster days, like we have, twice a year, that's handled by the solid waste management, and we just pay extra for that.
The two times that they
They give us,
place those out here, the county absorbs that cost and place it here.
but we have to pay for the cost of the fuel things away if we don't want.
Absolutely. If
That's
there are
why
things,
It's a safety net with that money.
if there are things in that dumpster, there are any type of materials that would be charged an extra fee, a landfill, the town of Leeds has to pay that fee.
So that's why we had to have somebody out there monitoring it, because we were having stuff dumped we had to pay for, so it was,
You'd be amazed at what people throw in that dumpster.
and we're not even from.
No dead bodies, though.
That I know of.
Tires and other things.
Batteries.
Got an ordinance for those now.
And
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion on the trash collection and fees? We need to really have that in our minds coming with the upcoming budget, which will be in a few months, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at close. I think it makes sense that we continue to do that. It really does give the town an avenue to post, interaction or communications with the general public that live within the municipality, which is good.
And it would seem that if the town weren't doing it as a whole, then the company would, each homeowner would have to pay separately, and then they would probably keep a more accurate list and they wouldn't pick up.
I don't know how the solid waste district handles that on their
I
policies.
will ask them at the next meeting.
Yes. Angela, since you are a representative, that would be great for that group. Okay, 9C. We had a little bit of discussion in the past on the police car. Frank, tell us what you have for information from Dixie College concerning the police car.
Well, first, let me clarify, when it was mentioned that the town had the county sheriff, or what was it?
He was a constable.
Right, asked about purchasing the car, the Dixie State Campus Security was looking to buy a car as well. And so they came and looked at the car, and they were willing to make an offer. And they've made an offer, and so the discussion is on the table.
The car really is a liability to the town, even when you think about a vehicle that sits there, you say, well, what does it, it doesn't cost us anything. It does, cost
Yeah,
to have.
maintenance costs,
There is maintenance costs. If,
insurance.
if we move it at all, there is insurance on it, and there is insurance on it, and we do move it because it's more detrimental to that vehicle not to be moved periodically.
I really think we ought to keep the car. It acts as, even though there's not a live body acting as a police officer, in a sense acts as our police force. If,
There is,
when the guy coming down the street at 50 miles an hour sees
All the
it, he
time.
slams brakes.
all the time.
I'd be more in favor of stripping any equipment that's worth anything out of it, selling that, and having our maintenance man, you know, just keep insurance on it, keep it running, so it doesn't just become a fixture. But let's have somebody move it, you know, once a week.
I've seen it happen several times. Driving down Main Street, they see that police car, and automatically brake lights light up.
I personally am in favor of disposal of it because of the liability. And if I thought there was a chance in the near future, the town may revive a police force. That's my opinion.
So have you done the figures on what the expenses are that we incur every year, and what is the value of the car, and what is the offer
Frank,
being made?
what was the offer that the college came up with?
Is it in the town's best interest to disclose that? For,
It's in their best interest that they can disclose an offer that somebody made.
I mean, would we want to, if we are going to sell, we want to solicit other offers and pick our best offer? Or do you want to reveal what somebody's willing to pay for it?
Well, I think anybody who wanted to buy it, town wanted to sell it, it'd be open to anybody who wanted to buy it, so as far as that goes. I mean, there's just because I'm at the college, it doesn't have anything to do with it, it just has to do with the fact that someone wanted the car, another agency, and Dixie was interested in having something as a stopgap measure for a couple of years before they would buy another car. So, and they just drive them around on the campus basically, so.
Heck, I might just drive around that fun. Speed down the freeway.
Tell the person
Isn't that
who's the police
illegal?
officer.
That costs you more money in the long run if you get caught.
But it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, it could be, for a moment.
Well, I think maybe the practical part here is, you know, if the town wants to sell it and post say, people can submit a sealed bid for an offer, there would have to be an agency that would be using it for police operations, because if we sell it to someone else, we don't know if they're gonna strip it down and drive it around as a police car in another state. So,
Yeah, I think it's important for the public to understand it's not real estate property. Real estate property goes through a different process when a municipality disposes of real estate. When it's what they call personal properties like this, it's just an administrative function. Realistically, we could gift it to anybody that we wanted to, or sell it, or
So what are they offering?
no, they didn't really make an offer, they just did an appraisal of what they thought the car was worth to be the town to say, this is what we want for it.
Okay.
So that's the whole point, they're not making an offer.
What was the car worth? That price?
I think it was somewhere around 40-some hundred, the car itself, and then you have the lights and sirens and some of that other stuff, and it brings it up to about 5,700. So the car's somewhere around 4,000 and something, but it's a 2003. So,
So, if 2 years from now, we decided to reinstate some sort of a local police presence, would we have to have a car?
yes.
It depends on how you implemented that. I'll give you an example. Tokerville contracts extra duties from the Washington County Sheriffs. They do not have a car.
Our town is small enough, it might be cheaper to buy a mountain bike.
Well, there's one thing that we have benefited from, and I don't, how many here remember when we did the police survey and we asked the town whether they wanted to have it or not? And the town said no, they didn't want to spend the money. And then we went to the county and asked how much, and it was pretty expensive for them to provide the service. But what we lucked out, I would say that is, the county has to provide service up to New Harmony, and the closest place for them convenience is Leeds. So you see more county police here than we probably saw sometimes when we had our own service we were paying for. I see a county officer here every day almost in the town sometime. We're not paying for that service, they're providing that service. If we wanted to add additional service, we'd probably be getting the same thing we're getting right now and be paying for it, to be realistic. So that's what Tokerville's paying for, so. And it's, you know, it's not because I'm with the college whether they get it or not, that's immaterial. It's just to explain what the college is trying to do is they've added other officers and they just want to have a vehicle as a stopgap to, you know, to move around and have something, because they have, some of their cars are older than this car, they're gonna have to liquidate and change and move in. So when the town said they were kind of interested, especially when the constable wanted to buy it, why not look at that avenue? What I'd like to be able to do is, and I know we can't legally do it, but it'd be great to trade the car in for X number of scholarships for students in the town, which would be, you know, even a better deal, but I don't think that's legally allowed. I don't think you could trade something for, but there would be more gain.
Oh, we could sell the car and then establish a scholarship fund.
But anyway, that's, you know, it's just upfront the whole deal. I mean, there's no benefit for anyone that takes the car. The benefit is it just gives the town more money and less liability of spending. I know what you're saying is people drive by, but if you think about it, 96% of the people who drive through already know it's the town, so it's just those few people driving through. And so that's the only ones that are slowing down.
And just to, maybe, might sound repetitious, Washington County Sheriff Department, and I'll make this public statement about them, have been extremely cooperative with Leeds. I cannot convey my appreciation enough for the way that they've dealt with and handled Leeds. I'm not speaking for individuals who may have had any type of an incident or called them or needed them. I'm talking about the way that they've interacted with Leeds, the body of politic with Leeds, and the service that they've given to the town of Leeds. Very commendable. The first question, is disposal of it an option? If it's not, then we don't need to go any further. Like I say, my opinion is it's a liability and I don't see a benefit from that liability, but there again, that's just my opinion. And we don't have to make a decision. I mean, this is discussion item, but either way, it doesn't have to go to a motion on this. But I believe that we should agree as an administrative board, come to an agreement on whatever it is.
My opinion is still to keep the car and use it as a deterrent for somebody speeding down the road or looking to commit some other act of crime or vandalism.
Okay, should we move on to the next discussion item?
I have was just going to agree with Joe that, an opportunistic, burglar or whatever, getting out the freeway, turn case leaves, sees a police car, and they don't, they may see that there's nobody in it at the moment, but they know that there might be somebody. And it might dissuade them from considering it. And at 5,700, that's pretty cheap deterrence.
Especially when we're running right on like 15.
Right.
And when there's drug traffickers in Pine Valley, Pine Mountain.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as the general consensus that you desire to maintain the police car.
Don't be blowing my farm.
Be careful when I
Careful
say
what you
something
say.
like that. Okay, discussion item 9D, mid-year financial report. You have in front of you the profit and loss budget versus the actual for this year. And you'll see that the lines are highlighted specifically for the total expenses and the total revenues. It just gives you an idea of where we're sitting in mid-year in our budget. And those total incomes for mid-year are at 60% of what was budgeted. The expenses are 41% of what was budgeted. Now, there are a number of variables in municipalities of incomes and expenses, or revenues and expenses, so and that can change fairly rapidly, within a month's time, but over that mid-year, 6-month time. The other document you have in front of you is what the budget that was proposed to the public last year and then what was submitted to the state. Those are the numbers. That form you're looking at is a form that is put out by the state of Utah auditors, the auditing department. That form is a form that we need to implement as we prepare budgets. That is the form that the state issues. That is the form that every town, cities have a little bit different form. But towns, that is the form that you would issue to the state auditor. And we need to follow that outline. Now, under those general categories, we can plug in a number of things, and it's in our best interest as we look at future budgeting. We can make it as, what's the word I'm looking for, Bob? Extensive, or break it down. And I suggest that we do. If you look, they lump a number of things into administration. And that's pushing all of your wages there, which is fine. I think when it comes for budgeting that we need to look at in the future, because we're a small enough town, let's look at the individual positions. The other thing that has been done in the past budgets, those wages, you will see some of them show up in parks, some of them show up in public works or streets and highways. Wages do not belong there. And when I'm talking total numbers, I'm talking the total expenditures and the total revenues. Those numbers are exactly. But that breakdown is the way that we deal with it as an administrative group to help explain whatever explanation we need or to whatever detail we need for each group to help us understand what our monies are really, what they're coming from and where they're going. So we make that a lot more detailed than that report, but those categories need to stay the same of what you see there.
So the compound administrative, we break that administrative
We could,
down.
and I think we should.
I think so,
Absolutely.
Because that's all of them
yeah, that's compound.
salaries.
Wasn't that what's been done on the QuickBooks printout?
It has, but if you follow the QuickBooks printout, it does not follow this outline. And that's something that we're very slow at trying to get that
We're
changed.
working on getting that in that format. So-
Our
No.
contract bookkeepers
Yeah.
with Savage and Esplin are helping our town staff to get that done. The numbers are all there, but when you look at a category and it's not the same as what you have to submit to the state, it just, I
Gets
don't know.
confusing.
I probably ought to shut up right there because
Okay, so
it makes me a little angry.
this was the previous years.
Yeah,
And is this what we voted on
yes,
that we're operating under right now?
that's correct.
See, under
And what's the
administrative.
difference between current year estimate and budget?
So that
would
would
a hundred and fourteen thousand a year?
That would have been
I'm sorry.
your, keep in mind that
114,000 a year?
when budgets are done, budgets are timelined on when they have to be proposed to the public and then when they have to be submitted to the state. And it will always be before that June 30th deadline. So that's what the current estimate year is. That was as of June 6th of 2012. It says, here's where our monies are on June 6th. But we really won't close it until June 30th. But we estimate this is what's going to be spent in that next period of time.
So this is what we estimate will be spent by June 30th, 13th.
This is last year's budget. Keep in
All
mind, this
of this
was,
is last year's.
yes. That's just to help you understand the form and what needs to, what really needs to change and be implemented in future budgets. And it's on the layout. And it has nothing to do with, the total numbers are still, for expenditures and revenues, are the total numbers.
So this is what goes to these two things.
Clear as mud.
Well, it was
Yeah.
just, it's confusing because this is not the current year. This is the current, we're operating in
Not when you're looking at a proposed budget or a budget that, keep in mind that this document is a document that we were looking at in June of 2012,
here.
not in this format. It was not in this format.
Well, our fiscal year goes from June 30th to June, to
July
1 to
July
June
1 to
30th.
June 30th.
And so what we instituted went from July 1, 12 to June.
That's correct.
And that's why I say this is our current year, this is where we're operating. This is all history.
True, but when you say that, you can't say, well, this is our current year, because the document is the current year.
The document.
The document's the current year of, for fiscal year 2012, 2013. This document is created in June of 2012.
Mhm.
That's your current year, because you're still running on a budget of,
So this is not right, and this will say the same as this.
this is your proposed. That's what your upcoming is. That we're really in now. You're right when you say current.
No.
That yellow column is where we're at now.
Mhm.
But in June of 2012, when this document and these numbers were proposed, our current year was 2012.
Okay. So these figures expire in
June
30th.
30th of
12.
2012. Correct. And the ones in yellow started in July 1st of 2012 and end in June 30th of 2013. Need to follow that.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
On road funds, we've built up some more road funds, so, but in this profit and loss, it doesn't really show all the road funds in this account, does it?
No, this account will not show
All the funds,
your PTIF accounts.
okay.
And the other thing that we have been doing, or I've noticed in the past, we've plugged in some impacts
Right.
in the budget. Impacts do not belong in the budget. They're a separate entity of their own. It's a separate report that you file to the state for your impact fees. They're very specific of what projects generated the funds,
Right.
where are the funds going, and when do you expect to use those funds?
Because you remember the last council meeting where we put some road base down in about 5 areas. Sterling, over Frank Jackson, and a couple other places, so.
The other
Have-will
thing that-
gravel,
Say again?
have-will gravel, you know,
Mhm.
have-will travel.
Have will gravel. See, you're still awake, Frank.
Honestly.
Is there any other questions, you know, as far as this, where the mid-year budget is?
Nope.
Granted, the budget looks probably better than it would if we have spent some of those road funds. Those road funds that have been sitting there for the last couple of years, you know, from a budgetary standpoint, make numbers look good on, you know, total revenues or a total balance. But when you're not spending them, you're not doing the repairs that need to be done.
But we will spend it. We have to build up enough money to do projects.
I know that's difficult.
So we have enough now to do it.
Okay, discussion item 9E. We had a little discussion last meeting on codification. I put it in your packet, what we received from Code Publishing. Remember how many pages there are there? Here's the original document, yeah, that's the page. That gives a list of the issues that need to be addressed by Code Publishing. This codification started, I'm going to say almost 5 years, well, 4 years ago at least, when we had initially budgeted monies for codification.
I think when Trudy Long was
Codification for a municipality is extremely important. It establishes all of the code and ordinances, resolutions, and everything that the municipality is governed by. And it's managed by codifiers, and there's different companies that do that. But as you make a change, like tonight, there was a resolution and an ordinance that passed, you would submit those changes to them. They would make the change on the documents that they manage. And from websites, you can link directly to those codes. It makes it very convenient and easy to manage the direction of rules and procedures and ordinances and resolutions that municipalities are governed by, and the changes that happen. It really is a professional step. Unfortunately, this was one of the issues, codification and the updated zoning map were two of them that Fran Rex was taxed with over a year ago. And with the changes we've had in staff, Fran had to come back as a temporary, clerk recorder. We're not able to finish those up. They've been sitting out there pending being finalized, and it really, it needs a small group of people to sit down and address each one of those items and finish it. Finish it, submit it, be done with it. We've approved money in our budgets for this, and we need to continue that. Very important part of how we deal with records management.
Is this a task that we want to have town staff doing, or we want to hire a consultant to come in and do it, or a group of town citizens?
2 years ago, we had the discussion, and at that time, we felt that a small group of citizens from the town could get together and resolve this. It's still sitting there. And that was where it worked to our advantage as Fran stepped back as a deputy clerk, and we were able to staff with a full-time clerk at that time. It was a good project for her to work on and finish up. Just didn't maintain that way. But we can direct that however you feel would be best.
Well, Mayor, I think you need to make a recommendation what the council wants, how you want the council to react to this, because I know there's different avenues, but I think that's what you need to do.
I'm in favor of handling these issues that have been presented to us by the codifiers here locally. I think it's in our best interest because it number one, is causes us to be engaged in that and have a better understanding of, yeah.
Because I would challenge you to make a recommendation if you need to hire somebody temporary just to come in, finish these out, and to do that, then we'll do that. And it can be maintained as we go. There's like 12 pages.
There will even be a few more that have happened since we were issued this in December, and just those few resolutions, but once you get it established, and if you stay right on top of it as any ordinances change, piece of cake for the public to be able to view what those changes are.
And I'm sure there's maybe some people here tonight that would want a temporary job, just a little bit of money, would like to do this. Or
3 cookies left. It's up for grabs. Right, Angela?
Not
3
taking them
cookies.
home.
No, I mean for helping do the codification.
Oh, yeah.
3 cookies.
that work.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, I believe that we agree that it should take place
Should definitely
here.
take place.
Yeah.
I think it should be a staffing issue.
Okay. And I already started in on that 9F, the zoning map. Another very important document that goes along with our general plan. If you look at the one that's over here on the wall, and the one that Forum Tomorrow presented, as we went through the updated general plan, showed future areas that didn't exist on the older map, but it mirrored the main part of the older map, which there are some inconsistencies. I'll give you a really easy example. When the map was made, people looked at areas like hillsides that they knew would not be buildable because of our hillside overlay ordinance. But instead of maintaining that zoning that was with a parcel, and the parcel had not changed or split on zoning, the map shows some of those areas as open space.
And
So it's misleading.
he's talking about right here. It's all one lot. It's got 2 different zoning indications on it, even though, because this is a hillside.
Now, where properties could come in, and I'll give an example of Silver Point Estates, which is up by the historic cemeteries, and that map will still show it as county. When it was annexed in that annexation, it specifically shows on their annexation map where different zoning occurs on those properties. So you have the potential to have, one large tract of land or even a smaller one that may have 2 different zones, but it will be spelled out specific in a document. And those areas that they have marked as open spaces, because of the hillside ordinance, really need to be governed by the hillside overlay that would do that. It's very confusing to look at that map.
So is this an issue for the planning commission to be working on?
Actually, we received contact from Nicole McDermott, is who was working with Fran on this, and she agreed to help with whatever we need from them.
Okay.
And what we need is, we need to present clarification of where that zoning really is. They will generate the map. Form tomorrow agreed to pay the expenses for Nicole's time on that. And so it's more of a timing, more of time that needs to be spent by a small group. And I would suggest that it be a small group here in town that really understand the zoning that took place, that has taken place in the past, and what exists. You won't find all of the zones that are there, you won't find it in documentation in annexations from years ago. I mean, it just wasn't that clear and cut dry a number of years ago. Over the last 7 or 8 years is very specific when properties were annexed in or when there was a zone change. And we have good documents that show that. But you can't show those areas as open space. It makes it very, very hard to, yeah, confusing. Thank you, I was confused. Now I'm clear-minded. So there's another small group of people that would be very beneficial. Okay, I'm gonna move on to item number 10, citizen comments. Bob, did you have any individual sign for a citizen comment? Okay, item number 11, staff reports. Did you have any staff members or any council members have? I did want to touch a little bit, reminders of areas of responsibility. Frank is, still leading up the road issue, but we had assigned Nate to work with him on that. So collectively, I need both of you guys, dealing with road issues on any type of road issues that exist. Nate, the other thing that I had mentioned, or I had on the list, I thought I'd mentioned to you, I also would like you to be on the wastewater side of it. And I know that you're saying, what are you talking about? If you recall, in Silver Point Estates, Rick Sant's property, the wastewater system on there is looking for a body of politic, and we discussed as a council that Leeds would be that body of politic to handle any sewer systems that came off from that project. So coming up, in the next while, there will be more interaction that will have to happen in the town of Leeds. The state of Utah has already inquired as to who the body of politic would be. That project is moving along, I can tell you that. So that will be part of your area of responsibility too.
I'll familiarize myself with that.
Joe, you're still sitting as our treasurer. As long as you're not compensated for that position, you can maintain that position and I would hope that you will maintain that position.
For the time being.
Also, you have some duties with historical, anything coming up with historical, which, would be some of our properties that fall in the CCC camps and things like that. Unfortunately, they're kind of sitting in mothballs, if you will,
Yeah.
right now. Angie, Parks, Recreation, our solid waste representative.
How's the outdoor swimming pool?
Won't be here in the summer.
We need more shovels, right? Okay, any other reports by council members?
I just have 2 items and then
Unless every day.
then I'd probably move out of adjournment. But what I wanted to share is Sterling and I have talked, and Frank Jackson's talked to you, and we're trying to get some prices on getting this gravel down, because we want to get that to settle in base before we come in and do some of the other road repairs. And LDWA is checking on where they've cut through on the roads, so that we know which ones they've done and others are responsible for repairing that. And then by the time March comes, we can start doing some of this chip and seal and paving and stuff. So Nate and I need to get with Sterling and Frank Jackson and get that going, because they're willing to do some of the labor to lay out the material, which will save us some money.
Another item hanging out there, I don't know if you guys have followed up on an encroachment, an overall encroachment permit with LEWA. You guys were gonna get with Elliott.
Yeah, they were supposed to give us one, they were on that.
Okay.
I think isn't that correct, Patty? Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention, Bob, I like the quality of the work you're producing here. It's very easy to read, it's very clear. I don't see any typos and things of that nature, so I just wanted to publicly let you know what a nice job you're doing. And then in February, then we're going to do a big hoopla and praise to you, Mayor, for all your good work.
No praises, let's
Yeah,
just,
you're just gonna have to take the lumps, because we're gonna give you praise, so.
I can handle a lump.
No, praise the lumps.
Yeah, I guess on that note, just for explanation to the public, I think I mentioned this earlier in the meeting, February 13th. My resignation letter stated a specific time, 7 o'clock. With Frank as our mayor pro tem, going to be up to state legislature, it probably makes more sense that I conduct that meeting here rather than Frank trying to conduct that by way of Skype or other electronic device. And so that's the direction we'll go for the next meeting.
So then I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We stand adjourned at 8:20.